All right, welcome everyone to the first workshop in our Bridging the Gap series for this year. And today we'll be talking about strategies for maintaining well-being as a graduate student. Our goal with this series, there will be more of these, so keep an eye out for these, is to have a forum for grad students to discuss from the grad student perspective. I know that the last year has been incredibly difficult to be a graduate student, and you have a lot of information thrown at you by email and by workshops. But we want this to be an opportunity for discussion. So the way that we're setting up these workshops is first a presentation by an expert. Today we'll have Dr. Fong Luong from UC Irvine's graduate division, who I hope that you've interacted with before. He'll share his expertise and resources information on ways to overcome challenges you might be facing during grad school and COVID-19 in general. And then we'll have the perspective of your peers. We'll have a grad student panel of 4 people share their experiences in navigating challenges through grad school. And then we'll have a Q&A session. And you should be able to also send questions anonymously to the host if you don't want to unmute yourself or type into the regular chat. Then we'll have Dr. Luong respond to the discussion, and then we'll wrap up. So that's what to expect today. So without further ado, I will go ahead and turn it over to you, Dr. Luong. And we're really excited to hear what you have to share.
Thanks for the introduction, Stacy. Thanks for helping to organize this. I don't know if we've met before, Greg, but good to meet you here virtually. Sharnia, as always, great working with you. I saw Hasty earlier. Good to see your face, and hopefully hear more from you also. And of course, Kamal, who organized and set this up for today also. My name is Fong Luong. I work as a graduate division counselor in grad division. And I've been at UCI for about close to 6 years now, maybe a little bit more than that, actually. Before that, I worked as a clinical psychologist in a different setting. I apologize that I look like I'm here to fix your cable today, but I was feeling like it was a dad hat kind of Tuesday, you know what I mean? So good to be here with y'all. And like Stacy said, I really want this to be an interactive experience for those who are joining us today. So with that said, under the umbrella of work-life balance, I'm going to ask the audience to use the chat box. What comes to mind when that phrase or that terminology comes up? Work-life balance. What automatically comes to mind? So take a moment to do that. Audience, feel free. And as you do that, I might just ask you to expand a little bit on what you say, but if you want to pass, that's completely fine also. Let's see who's joining us here today, other than the people I already mentioned. Hi, Amari. Hi, Amir. Anna, you Young. Dr. James Earthman is with us today. Hi, James. Good to see you. Catherine, Modest, Naomi, Peter, Rachel, Rakia, Reg, Rusbay, Salma, Sierra, Stacy, Sean, Zara. Okay, so let's see who else joins us throughout our time here. But let's see what Stacy is saying, starting us off. Why is work the first word in work-life balance? Why is it not life-work balance, y'all, right? That's a great question. And this is also meant to set up perhaps the conversation with the student panelists also in their presentation. So keep this in mind. Amari is saying there are more work days than self days, for sure, right? Reginald, I don't know, sounds fake to me. Kamal is saying, making sure we leave enough time for ourselves to socialize with family, friends outside of work. So drawing perhaps a boundary sometimes with our work to be able to integrate time with family and friends outside of work. Sarah is saying splitting your time between work, mental health, things you enjoy, and physical health. So these are all non-academic things that Sarah is touching on. So thank you for sharing that. Catherine is saying, I had more work-life balance when starting grad school, but far less since the pandemic started. Okay, so definitely something I want to dive into as our discussion progresses here. Far less since the pandemic started is what Catherine is saying. Rekia is saying, I think work-life balance encompasses giving employees, workers, trainees the tools to work efficiently within a 40-hour work week, while also encouraging outside personal development. Rachel is saying there is no such thing as work-life balance. And that might be field specific. So I'd be interested to hear more from you, Rachel, about that, what that looks like in your specific field. Greg is saying, doing what I love as work, so it does not feel like work. Absolutely, understood on that. Ung Young is saying, people say work-life balance is a fantasy, lots of laugh. I mean, in academia specifically. All right. So maybe I can get some input from you, and I'll share my own sort of thoughts on work-life balance in this sort of 15-minute introduction portion of our workshop here. But Stacy, since you were the first to start us off, why is work the first word in work-life balance? Are you able to maybe expand on that a little bit?
I think we tend in our culture to prioritize work because it has to do with social status and success. But honestly, the majority of our time hopefully is spent doing things other than working, like sleeping, eating, spending time with people we love. So it might help to rephrase it the other way around, if not at least on equal footing.
Agreed. Life-work balance it is, understood. Thank you for that. Amari, do you want to add a few words to your statement? There are more days, more work days than self days.
Sure. If we think about it, 5 out of the 7 days are devoted to work, and the rest are devoted to preparing for work for the next week. So when do you really have time for a balance or for yourself? It's only a couple of hours, to be honest.
Understood. Do you have strategies that have maybe worked for you in terms of trying to carve out time? Maybe it's more theory than practice, but like, what have you thought about?
I have, adapted some new habits that I will maybe talk about on the panel.
Yes,
I've
ma'am.
read some books that have been helpful in that manner, but the boundary is not clear still.
Okay, understood. So just coming down, like Reg, you say, I don't know, that sounds fake to me. And I'm sure you have a lot more to share when the panel starts, Reg, but assuming you are on the panel, Reg, is that accurate?
I think so.
Okay, I think so. All right, so any sort of expanded thoughts around your statement that you want to share, Reg?
I think work is a part of life, so that the concept of balancing a part of your life with another part of your life is fine, but making an entirely new idea for it specific to work, I don't think is helpful.
Understood. Okay, thanks for sharing that. Kamal is saying, making sure we leave enough time for ourselves to socialize with family, friends outside of work. Can you add to that, Kamal?
Yes, I think my thought was similar to what Stacy was saying earlier about it's like our world kind of revolves around work, and then you put everything around it. And you choose to have family when you think you're in a good place of, work. You choose to, expand your social circles. Oh, I have time now. I have some free time. So now I can, oh, I'm too busy. I don't have time to meet my friends. So I think it's our social lives revolve around our work lives. And I don't know if it has to be that way. They can have overlaps or, some balancing. I like Reg's sense of humor that I don't know if maybe it was not sense of humor, sorry, but it sounded like, funny because it seemed like a fantasy at some point. But yeah, I think for me, it was like, I personally live by the mission that I don't want my work to be the center, that the fulfilling thing for me. It can fulfill me, but if something goes down, which goes down a lot in PhD, I don't want to be relying on that to fulfill me mentally and physically.
Understood. Thank you for sharing that. Maybe just a couple more thoughts about this. Rekia, you're saying, I think work-life balance encompasses giving employees a set amount of time, 40 hours in this case, while also actively encouraging that sort of balance with outside personal development. Do you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, I think my major thing as a grad student is, especially since we're deemed trainees or students, oftentimes I think the work-life balance itself is like a responsibility of the employer. Since most of the time in academia, those lines can get blurred and kind of abused for students or people under the student role. And so I think it's important that like your PI or the department that you're in really emphasizes what it means to have work-life balance. Because I think most of us coming in are kind of, it's too vague. It's like, well, how do I work efficiently? How do I also feel happy with my current work each week and my own progress and development at work, while also emphasizing like my outside life. And so I think a lot of the time that's something that needs to be put into the training or the development so that students are given a chance to kind of have that life satisfaction.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I co-sponsor everything you just said. Like it has this sort of trickle down effect regarding specific labs, right? Like if your advisor is someone who encourages work-life balance, lives it themselves, then that is, I think, a healthy message to send. And it's much better for us when we're thinking about not just our experience right now in grad school, but creating longevity within our specific fields. So thank you for sharing that. Maybe one more, Greg. You're saying, do what I love as work, so it does not feel like work. Can you say more about that? What's the secret sauce there, my man?
No secret sauce there, just the mindset that you just adopt. I come from a background where, work-life balance, it doesn't exist when you got to work to put food on the table and to make ends meet. So I carry that into the work that I do now. So it's the best way you can do it is love what you do, so it don't feel like work.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And I know there's one more comment that I didn't get to earlier. Modeste, you're saying first thing that comes to mind is time management. It seems like 24 hours is not enough for a day. Do you want to add to that at all, Modeste?
Sure. Like often in time, I think that like we mostly live like just like working and doing other stuff, and we don't spend like I mean, we wish we could spend more time with family, but I don't think like the time we spend with family is enough. So like one of the things that I'm concerned with that I might end up regretting, like, so at some point I might have like maybe, okay, I'm working on a PhD degree. I might end up having that PhD, like making a lot of money, but at that point it might be too late. Like I might not have spent enough time maybe with my parents, with my children and stuff. So yeah, so I don't just know how to balance like those so that I don't end up regretting. Yeah.
Okay, understood. Thank you for sharing that. There's another element there that Modeste mentioned, right? Like how do we, if we have kids or family responsibilities, how do we come to a balance around these things? So I'll leave that part perhaps more for the panelists and the Q&A section, but I will introduce some ideas to maybe frame our conversation a little bit more. So thank you for sharing these thoughts in the chat box. Without making it explicit in the responses, it seems like some of us are maybe edging towards or even at the point of burnout because of this imbalance that we feel between work and life or life and work, that sort of thing. So a few things to keep in mind, right? One, if you are at that stage where you're approaching or feeling like you're burnt out, please quantify your week. What does that look like? We have 168 hours in a week, if I'm doing my math right. I like to see my students, like it was mentioned earlier by Rakia, between 40 and 50 hours of total academic work. Okay, you could be a little bit less some weeks. You may have a deadline or maybe a manuscript to submit soon. So it could stretch beyond 50 some weeks also. but on average, I like to see my students between 40 and 50 hours per week. Sleep, which is an incredibly important thing and one of the foundations of health. I like to see my students between 49 and 56 hours, working in a range to make sure that you don't put additional pressure on yourself, meaning I have to hit 56 hours a week or X number every week. Working in a range is a way to quantify your sleep, but also make sure that you don't add additional stress on yourself to meet any sort of exact number, if you will. So with that said, one night you can get 8 hours of sleep. The next night, maybe you have something coming up that you have to wake up early for and you get 6 hours of sleep. And then on the weekend, maybe you have that sort of makeup sleep between Friday and Saturday morning. So quantifying your sleep to make sure you're trying to fall in that range of 49 to 56 hours, okay? Regarding sleep itself, if you're having difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep, all the research tells us you have to be physically active during the day, like some sort of mobility, whether it's walking, running, or some sort of exercise routine is one of the primary ways to help you fall asleep and stay asleep. Last thing about sleep I'll say is, please, my friends, grad school is stressful enough. Do not lose sleep over anyone who ain't losing sleep over you. Okay, so 49 to 56, make sure you're getting your physical activity in during the day to help you fall asleep, and don't lose stress over people who ain't probably losing sleep over you, okay? So there's the work piece, 40 to 50, the sleep piece, 49 to 56. How much should you exercise per week, right? The research tells us 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week. And so that, like I said, could be just walking, a light jog, yoga, whatever it is that works for you, and you have choice and agency over that. But that's what's recommended per week. So I also wanted to give you some numbers to quantify your week, okay? The other thing that comes up a lot during my conversation with students is, how do I balance my writing? All of us in one form or another are in some sort of writing and reading intensive program. There are some of us who also have that additional piece of TAing and bench work, et cetera, right? But all of us have in common intensive reading and writing. So writing has come up a lot. I think some of the things, and this isn't necessarily coming from me, but from other students, what's worked for them is to have some sort of writing partner, whether it's physically, that person is physically in front of you, or using an app to help you with your progress, to help you stay focused. Two, I think a lot of my students are moving away from, let me sit down and write for 5 hours. More and more, they're sitting down and saying, let me write within, again, this idea of range between 300 and 500 words for today, doing this 4 to 5 times a week. And maybe it's not word content, maybe it's working on a particular figure, right? But typically, I think it's been less stressful for students to move away from, I have to sit for 4 hours and write as much as I can. In these moments, I think sometimes students can get distracted and perhaps even lose focus during that 4 hours. I think it's a healthier and more productive thing to think about when you're writing, to be working in a range of 300 to 500 words 4 to 5 times a week, okay? And then how do you read a journal article? There's all sorts of strategies to save time for yourself. Some students have really proposed the idea when they're doing background research to try to move their research forward, to dive into the intro and the conclusion. And if the paper is relevant, then you dive back in a little bit more in depth regarding the discussion methodology, okay? So I'll stop there about writing. I'm sure there's many more ideas, many more thoughts around how to be a productive writer and reader, but I'll leave it there for now. I see a couple messages coming in. Sean is saying, getting a dog definitely helps me to exercise regularly. So that's definitely a strategy students have used during the pandemic, to have an emotional support animal that is there for you, that can snuggle with you, that can keep you warm, but can also get you outside for those walks. And Kamal is saying, too much screen time has definitely affected my vision health. So agreed. I think Zoom fatigue is a very real thing also that we can discuss. The last point I'll make regarding just managing time and perhaps managing energy is this idea of communication, right? You hear all the time, please be proactive with your communication. But grad school is fraught with power differences, challenging conversations, and sometimes it's really easy to withdraw from those conversations as a way to protect yourself. I will say that on any job interview, you're going to be asked, how do you manage conflict? And you would never respond to this question by saying, I internalize all my feelings, isolate myself, and passive aggressively throw shade at my colleagues. However, in practice, this happens more often than I would like. I've been guilty of that myself. I've seen it happen all the time with colleagues and friends. And sometimes it can become debilitating, right? So tools to have hard conversations. Like if I know I'm going to have a difficult mediation or a challenging chat with a student or a professor or even a colleague, I think through 5 steps. Calm my breath, shut up and listen to the other person's POV, validate that POV in what way I can, ask the specific question of how I can help, and then lastly, hopefully you come to a point where you can move forward with potential mutual options, okay? So hard conversations, slow your breath, 6 counts in, 6 counts out. Listen attentively to the other person's POV. In what way you can validate that POV. Ask the specific question of how you can help, and then moving forward, if possible, with mutual options. I promise you, this is an effective way, and it's not always as clean, but I just wanted to offer you a framework to hopefully have those sort of challenging conversations that can help you save time and manage your energy, okay? Quantify your time, think about writing strategies, reading strategies, and effective communication skills. I will pause there and transition over to our co-facilitators to move us into the next step of our workshop here.
So now we'll give you about 10 minutes to respond to some of what you've heard and share some more of your expertise with us.
Yeah, just in terms of like the idea of surrounding yourself with additional support, I found that this particular website from the Campus Social Workers Office called the Campus Assist List, and I'm going to put it in the chat box right here, has been probably the most comprehensive list that I've seen. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen here. Pull this up. Amari, I was looking up quotes from the book that you recommended earlier, The Power of Habit. So
Yeah,
I'll order that book later on today. So, okay, so from the Campus Assist List, let's see if I can share that. So this is what it looks like, my friends. Pretty intuitive as far as the navigation goes. It breaks various resources into subcategories. So I'm just going to focus on a couple that that might be more relevant for today's conversation. But the mental health therapy piece as a way to find outlets for externalization and to find some outside mentorship and resources. The Care Office, which is a confidential service that deals with relationship abuse, sexual assault. The Campus Social Worker Office. I typically work with the Campus Social Worker Office for referrals. So if a student is saying, you know what, my sessions at the counseling center have run out, or they recommended that I seek outside resources, the counseling center will offer those sort of providers. But the Campus Social Worker also has an extensive list, and they can help you narrow specifics down to your preferences, meaning if you prefer a particular gender, a particular working style with your therapist, a particular area that's accessible for you, the Campus Social Worker is really the resource to contact for a outside referral. Okay. coming down to the counseling center itself. Some of you may have already engaged with them. If you have not, it's a pretty straightforward process right now. I hear it's about a 2-week wait for an appointment. They do have emergent services. Should an immediate stressor come up, you can dial the number that you see in front of you, 824-6457. But the typical process is an intake that considers your history around mental, physical, spiritual health, various layers of wellness, and then considers the services you might need, okay? You can request a particular therapist, but that might add to the wait time a little bit, so just keep that in mind, okay? Let's see what else might be relevant here. Student Health Center, psychiatry and mental health services specifically. If you contact them, my friends, it does not mean that you have to start any sort of medication regimen, okay? If you contact a mental health psychiatrist at the Student Health Center, they will often provide a consultation after a brief intake and understanding of your history. They may very well recommend medication, but it doesn't mean that you have to take it. It's just another step to explore what's going on with you and get some feedback around that, okay? So those are some of the resources that are on campus through the Campus Assist list here for mental health resources. You can see this list also includes addiction, basic needs, emergency, domestic violence, disability, food, housing insecurity, specific services for the LGBTQ population. One more thing I'll just highlight from this list is the academic piece. Again, the campus social worker shows up. DSC comes up as far as a contact should you need any sort of accommodations based on a verified disability, they say. And it's also, by the way, the campus partner you would connect with should you need what was mentioned earlier, an ESA, an emotional support animal, okay? Myself as a graduate division counselor, just to clarify, my role is as an academic counselor, even though I mentioned earlier I have a clinical background. It is non-clinical in nature, and I would describe it more as an academic coaching position to help you manage grad life, whether it's working through work-life balance issues or managing stressors or developing communication skills, okay? So I'll stop there for this Campus Assist list, but it's pretty comprehensive. So take a deep dive into that should you want to learn more about some of the resources that are on campus. I'll also, I can stop sharing this, highlight, because it's been mentioned earlier, just writing support services through the GPSRC. Just walk you through quickly how to get some more information about writing consultation. So if you click on writing support, and then writing consultants, you can actually book an appointment online. So writing support takes various forms, right? It has, you can bring in a paper around your academic work, publications, dissertations, but also our writing consultants work with funding applications and job applications. So I don't think some students know that particular piece regarding the services that are available there. And right now everything's virtual, but we expect to hopefully have one-on-one in-person appointments come fall, okay? So there's quite a few other resources, but I'm gonna stop there to see if there's any other questions that any of you have regarding resources themselves. Let's see, maybe. Okay, so Stacey's just saying, great to know about the writing consultants, absolutely, all right. So I will also provide the link for the writing consultants in the chat box.
Thank you so much for these resources, Dr. Long. I also used the writing consultant when I was applying for fellowships when I first came to graduate school. It was super helpful.
Absolutely, thank you, thank you.
And I just wanted to add one more thing before there are closing remarks about, there was the question about having some guilt with the second language. I'm just mentioning that because I feel like these are things that sometimes we just put on the back of our mind, and unless you actually address it, it can become hard to proceed in graduate school. So if you are someone whose English is a second language, or you are just in general finding it difficult, to affirm your identity, making sure that, being kind to yourself, if you feel like that's really just not having enough confidence is affecting your work in general, life in general, then you should, like someone like Dr. Long or other academic counseling services available at UCI, make sure to talk to academic coach, because if you don't address them, they will just pile up as graduate school goes on. It doesn't get better. Things will get harder as you move forward in graduate school. Yes, you may get more used to it, or you just may think that's the norm for you. But I think this is it's literally practical training. Graduate school should be a practical training, and work, and eventually this will be very useful for you. So if you feel that there are feelings of guilt or just frustration of not being able to catch up as quickly, or maybe you have a slower learning slope, some people don't catch up right away and takes them longer to learn a new technique, or maybe writing, not everything is everyone's expertise, right? Some you maybe excel in one thing or not the other. So I think if you have it harder to communicate to your advisor, then you should talk to someone else, and don't delay too much, because I think it's very important to make sure that you get help in the earlier stages if you're having difficulty.
That's really wise advice, Kamal. And I do encourage everybody to take advantage of those resources. I want to wrap up here. First of all, thank Dr. Luong for your time. Thank all the panelists. And thanks to OAI, to Sharnia and Greg and their team for helping us put on this panel. I hope that this has given you an opportunity not only to get some strategies for success from students and our resident expert, Dr. Luong, but also I hope that you have a sense that you are not alone, that the struggles you might be facing are common struggles, that the last year has been really hard, and that you have some strategies to go forward. So I encourage you to reach out to one another, reach out to us, reach out to the resources that are available for you, because as faculty and staff here, our biggest goal is to help you succeed and find a very fulfilling career, but also more importantly, have a life that is really well worth living. So with that, I will wrap up and let Dr. Artis say a few things. I do also want to give a plug for the fact that we will have a couple more of these panels. So keep an eye out for a panel on April 20th, I believe. Oh, there it is. Look at that. Thank you. On thriving as parents and graduate students. And we're going to have guest speaker, Professor Jamie Smith. I am also working hard to try to get somebody from UCI Childcare Services. So hopefully we will have that, and we'll have another grad student panel.
Perfect. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Kopp. It really is great to partner with faculty. So you and Kamal, thank you for bringing this idea to OAI. I wanted to share this really quick in case you wanted to take a picture. If you didn't get the link, these are the resources that Dr. Long put into the chat. So I wanted to just show that slide. I want to encourage you to come to our next event. We also created an event survey. So if you could, and Greg, could you help me put this in the chat, this link, or the other link that I gave you? But if you do have a few minutes, please complete the event survey. We just want to get some feedback. We have another event coming up in a couple weeks, so we can make adjustments if necessary. While we probably all think everything went well, you may have, some comments to help us be even better. So we would love and welcome that. I also wanted to share with everyone, I think everyone completed the registration form. I hope that you signed up for the wellness package. If you did not sign up for the wellness package, I encourage you to just go back to the link. I don't think we closed it. Go back to the link, sign up. We do need your mailing address. I was talking to Greg. We're thinking about putting in the book that Omari referenced today to put in a care package. We already have some other stuff that's that we have pulled together. But we want to make sure you have that resource. Professor Kopp, we're going to make sure you get one too. Dr. Long, I don't know if you have that book, but thank you for being our speaker. But we want to get you a wellness package as well. Yeah. But this has been great. We really appreciate everyone. I think we did a shout out to Professor Earthman too. So it's great to see faculty supporting wellness and well-being because it is important to all of us. And as Professor Kopp said, you are not alone. We are not alone. I'm experiencing some of the same things that have been shared. So with that, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we'll stay on because I saw a couple messages come up about registration to just make sure we answer the questions that come into the chat.
Thanks, everyone.